by the name of David Wood. He made a video in which he made a display, a fake display of individuals supposing to be the Prophet Muhammad. So we cannot follow his posts, his videos, and leave illicit comments, cursing him out, threatening him, saying what you're going to do to him. None of this is beneficial. None of it works, and it only gives him more fuel to make more videos of the like. We have to respond in a better way and use wisdom in our response. David Wood is a whore for attention. He's a prostitute for attention. My advice to you all is to first and foremost report the video so that the video is removed from YouTube. Second of all, go to his Patreon account and also report that. But I'm warning my brothers and sisters, I'm warning the Muslims, don't respond in a way with negativity. Don't go under his posts and make all kind of insulting comments and foul language and all this. This is what he's looking for. He wants you to respond in this way, and it only gives him more attention, and it pumps his ego. A whore for attention, a prostitute for attention. But we don't realize is that the more he does against Islam, the more he does for Islam. Go to his channel because David Wood makes money off YouTube. This is his livelihood. He's a bum. He doesn't have a job. Go to where it hurts him. Go to the section and report and flag the video. And then also go to Patreon and also report and flag that the man is profiting off of Patreon through hate speech and hate antics against Islam. This is how you hurt him. But we don't realize that the more he does against Islam, the more he does for Islam.
Yesterday, a terrorist who describes himself as an ethno-nationalist, eco-fascist, semi-right-wing, semi-left-wing, semi-socialist racist opened fire at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, killing at least 49 people. The world is shocked, but to me the only surprising feature of this attack is that it occurred in New Zealand. Apart from that, I've been predicting attacks like this for years. And you don't need to be a genius to predict these attacks. Anyone who thinks carefully about human nature and the situation we're in can figure out where this is leading. All the way back in 2010, when Nabil and I were arrested and thrown in jail for having a peaceful discussion on a public street, I was pointing out what would happen if our leaders continued to oppress open, honest discussion about Islam. When tensions rise, when people become frustrated, we want them to have a peaceful outlet. We want them to respond with discussion or criticism or even ridicule, but not with violence. When leaders begin blocking discussion or criticism or ridicule, they don't seem to realize that people are going to vent their frustrations in other ways. Here's David Wood in 2010.
You see, the mayor's position, let's call it the ostrich approach, will not end well. You can't ignore the conflicts between Islamic law and Western values forever. And if you continue to ignore them, the tension is going to build, and we're seeing this all around the world, until people finally can't take it anymore and people on both sides react in a really bad way because they haven't learned to discuss difficult issues like adults. Our approach is to bring the issues to the surface and to address them. Yes, things can be a bit tense and uncomfortable initially, but in the long run, both Muslims and non-Muslims will realize that we can discuss Muhammad and the Quran and Sharia without resorting to threats, intimidation, violence.
The following year, Anders Breivik went on a killing spree in Norway. In his 1,500-page manifesto, he explained why he concluded that violence was the way forward. He said that while growing up, he witnessed numerous instances of violence by Muslims. He came to view Muslim immigration as the primary threat to European civilization and decided that he had to do something about it. However, Breivik said he noticed that whenever people criticized Islam, they were immediately shouted down as racists and bigots. So he came to view speech as pointless. Here's David Wood in 2011, quoting passages from Breivik's manifesto.
In the 1990s, when Breivik became convinced that Islam is a threat to European civilization, he decided to go into politics. But he soon realized that anyone who questions Islam is labeled a racist and marginalized. Since Islam was beyond criticism, Breivik came to regard political participation as utterly pointless. It is meaningless to participate in the democratical process when you are not allowed to raise important issues without being subjected to political and social persecution through stigmatization and ridicule. It is time to acknowledge that we, the cultural conservatives of Western Europe, are deceiving ourselves to believe that it is remotely possible to change the system democratically. Breivik realized this in the year 2000. Around the same time, he also concluded that the media has such a stranglehold on public perception, speaking out against Islam is futile. There is no freedom of speech in Europe. If you don't cheer and embrace your own annihilation, you are a racist bigot, an enemy of the establishment, and must be suppressed, ridiculed, undermined, and persecuted. Well now, you're a young Norwegian who sees immigration and Islam as the chief threats to Western society, but all peaceful avenues of addressing these threats have been blocked by politicians and the media. What do? In order to successfully penetrate the cultural, Marxist, multiculturalist media censorship, we are forced to employ significantly more brutal and breathtaking operations which will result in casualties. In order for the attack to gain an influential effect, assassinations and the use of weapons of mass destruction must be embraced. The primary goal of the shock attacks is not the immediate physical manifestation of the attack, destroying a few buildings, killing a few hundred traitors, but rather the indirect effects. Shock attacks will have the potency to penetrate the strict censorship regime of the cultural Marxists, multiculturalists. The purpose of the violence is to break through the protective wall the media has constructed around the topic of Islam.
Now, Breivik apparently has some mental health issues, but that doesn't mean that other people won't come to the exact same conclusions that he came to. So, I've been warning people for years that we're going to see more of this. Think about it. Lots of people are concerned about the spread of Islam. They're worried about their children. They're worried about terrorism. They're worried about rape gangs. But the moment they start to express any concerns about the teachings of Muhammad, they're called racists and bigots and hate mongers and Islamophobes. It doesn't take a prophet to realize that some of these people are going to give up on discussion and dialogue and instead turn to violence. Here's me predicting this, once again during a live stream with Robert Spencer just last year.
Breivik says, and I'm pointing this out because this is a conclusion I believe other people will come to eventually, right? Other people will come to this conclusion that we cannot have an open, honest discussion about Islam. It's going to be pointless. People are just going to call us racists. Therefore, I just have to take matters into my own hands. Other people are going to, now to be clear, you and I don't believe it's over. We believe we still can have this discussion. And I happen to believe that Islam is going to keep pressing with jihad until people actually start to listen to what we have to say. But I mean the irony here that other people could come to this same conclusion, and Breivik says, hey, the reason I'm going on a killing spree is because you people won't let me solve my difficulties, my problems, or share my objections with my speech. You guys have shut down open discourse on these issues, therefore I'm turning to kill. And then that attack is now used to silence more people, right? So, yes. And for years it was, not just with you. Anytime you brought up any criticism of Islam, they said, aha, this is what gave rise to Anders Breivik. Yes. This is the attitude that gives rise to Anders Breivik. And so we have to silence these people so we don't end up with more Anders Breivik. Silencing people is what led to Anders Breivik.
But I didn't just predict that more of these attacks were coming. I also predicted how they would be used. Here's what I said last year to people who advocate killing Muslims. If you really believe that slaughtering Muslims is the way forward, what color is the sky in your world if you think that Western governments are going to climb on board your crazy train? We've got jihadis on one side saying, kill the infidels, they're a threat to our way of life. And we've got you on the other side saying, kill the Muslims, they're a threat to our way of life. Perhaps you haven't noticed, but Western governments and the education system and the entertainment industry and the media are in love with all things Islamic. You, the guy typing "Nuke Mecca" in the comments section of YouTube, sound like a complete lunatic to them. So unless you've been secretly developing some awesome mind control device that can convince politicians and reporters to completely reverse their positions, you're delusional if you think that your comments section rants are going to become public policy. But maybe you're not counting on the government at all. Maybe you're counting on the nut job you see in the mirror every morning. Maybe you're already typing, "I don't need anyone else. I'll just kill them all myself." Newsflash. Going on a killing spree yourself is even dumber than counting on the government to do it for you. What could you possibly hope to accomplish with your killing spree? Governments around the world are pushing for new laws that block hate speech against Islam. If you start killing Muslims, guess whose crime is going to be Exhibit A for every politician trying to protect Islam from criticism? Yours, genius. Nothing you could do in life would help the global jihad more than violently attacking Muslims. Beyond that, whatever idiotic ideology is rolling around in that head of yours, politicians and the media will lump your views together with people who condemn violence. Politicians and the media won't say, "Oh, there's some violent loser who attacked a bunch of Muslims," unlike most critics of Islam who condemn violence and criticize Islam peacefully. Instead, they'll say, "See, this is what people who criticize Islam really want." What's terrifying now is that the Christchurch terrorist is aware of how his attack will be used. He discusses it in his manifesto. He's thinking about this in a different way. He wants to speed up the process of radicalization on both sides. He wants his attack to be used to silence people so that these people will give up on peaceful criticism and turn to violence. He wants violence to escalate on both sides until there's a war. He wants a war because he's convinced that a war is the only way to stop the advance of Islam. To be clear, the Christchurch terrorist says that he isn't really concerned about Islam as an ideology or Islamic culture. He's simply concerned that high birth rates among Muslims will lead to the marginalization and eradication of whites. He says he's not scared of Islam, he's only scared of the high birth rates of non-white Muslims. So here we have a man who knows how his mosque attacks will be used by people who want to silence critics of Islam. And he admits that he's carrying out the attacks to fuel division, speed up the conflict, and get a violent revolution. And how are politicians and journalists and activists responding? They're responding by doing exactly what the Christchurch terrorist wanted them to do. Politicians and journalists and activists are puppets. And now we've got terrorists as their puppet masters. Stay tuned because I'll be live tonight at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time with Robert Spencer, then again at 8 o'clock p.m. with the Apostate Prophet, and once again at 10 o'clock p.m. with Abdullah Samir. We want to get everyone's input on this, so hope you'll join us.